about, when I say mindset, it's about giving, surrendering to perfection and whatever
Yeah.
whatever you envisioned your life to be, whatever you thought it would be like, well, bonne chance, it's not what
Hmm.
you thought, right?
Hmm.
So much of it to start. That's why my step one of my 4 pillars is mindset.
Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to the Reflective Parenting Podcast. My name is Cindy Hovington and I am your host. I am a mom of 3 from Montreal, Canada, and I have a Ph.D. in neuroscience. My goal through not only this podcast, but I'm the founder and CEO of Curious Neuron. So my goal through everything that we do here at Curious Neuron, including this podcast, is not to give you more advice as a parent. I think that there are enough amazing platforms for that. You are going to get some insights, but everything we do here is grounded in science. And so I try to share the science focused on your emotional well being and your child's. If you can create this environment where both of these, your well being and your child's emotional well being are nurtured, then the outcome of that is positive for both of you. And what we see from research is when a parent is struggling with their mental health or well being, or maybe they don't know how to regulate their emotions. And so they're lashing out or they're even suppressing their emotions. Both of these extremes, on average, when this is the mechanism or the coping tool that you use most of the time, there's an impact on your child's behavior. And so I'm trying to shift the conversation away from the child, because very often we need to kind of revisit the entire environment. And that is what I do through Curious Neuron. It's truly about understanding your child's behavior differently by understanding how you cope with emotions and modeling healthy coping skills for your child. I'm really excited about today's guest. So we have Erica Diamond, and she is a self-care expert, a keynote speaker, a best-selling author, and a certified life and career coach. And so I know that this is different than the most other of the interviews or the guests that I have on, but I've been following Erica for a while, and I think that she often offers advice that we can apply today. And that's what I want for you. This episode is specifically for new parents. I have not given enough love and attention to you, new parents, new moms and dads. Whether it's your first child or your second, I think there's like this whole aspect of becoming a new parent in different ways. But I think that as new parents, we end up in this hyper education mode. I interviewed 100 parents last summer. And this is what I learned. Parents that are new parents are focusing on listening to all the podcasts that they can possibly find, including this one, reading all the books they can possibly find, following all the Instagram accounts, and they're forgetting about their needs. They're forgetting that their needs not only still matter, but matter more now. And so we can listen to all the podcasts that we want, but at some point we need to take action and make little changes and learn skills, which is why I developed the Reflective Parenting Club. I'm seeing so many parents that are new parents that come into the club, and they want to learn about parenting, and that's part of it, yes. But they often realize that it's all about themselves, whether you're stuck in your head giving yourself these expectations, and we're going to talk about that in the episode, but placing these unrealistic expectations on yourself that everything needs to be perfect. That's something you parents go through. I did it myself as well, where you just feel that you need to give everything to your child and you forget about yourself. And so I needed to come back to new parents, and I think I'm going to do it a little bit more. There are so many new parents out there that just feel that they need to give all of themselves to their new child or their 2 new kids. And I think that we need to see that a little bit differently. And so let's get into our conversation with Erica. I'm also going to change up the style of this podcast episode a little bit. So midway in the podcast episode, I'm going to show up again this way. And at the end, I'll come back to give you my interpretation and share a science article that I pulled out to kind of complement the conversation that I had with Erica. I will also be sharing a coupon code specifically for this podcast episode for the Reflective Parenting Club, because I want new parents to give themselves a chance to work on themselves. It's not therapy. This is different. These are skills. I work with therapists. Curious Neuron is now expanded or has expanded into clinics. We are in OT clinics, SLP clinics, pediatric clinics, and psychology clinics. And so if you run a clinic, you can reach me at info@curiousneuron.com. But the goal is to partner with the right types of clinics, which are pediatric clinics, to support while you are doing the work that you do supporting the child. We will do the work that we do here at Curious Neuron and support the parent, because that's what we do. And so wait till the end if you want to get that code, or you can email me info@curiousneuron.com. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Thank you to the Tannenbaum Open Science Institute as well as the McConnell Foundation. They are the ones that support this podcast. And so without them, this podcast would not be possible. And thank you. I hope that whether you are watching on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Audible or any other platform, that you are taking the time to rate the podcast or leave a review, or at least you are subscribed to it. So click those buttons and make sure you're subscribed. And if you know a new parent, please make sure that you share this episode with them. Again, it's easy. You can do it through any of the platforms that you're doing, that you're listening to this from. But share the episode with them, because it is so important for them. It's going to be like a gesture of love. You are reminding them that they matter and that you thought of them and that they need to listen to this episode, because it has so many actionable tips. I'll see you on the other side. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflective Parenting Podcast. And as promised in the intro, I'm here with Erica. Erica, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to connect today.
So am I. And we were just chatting before, and I said to Erica, I need to start recording because we're already talking about good stuff. Today, I really wanted to focus on the new parent. And the new parent doesn't have to have a newborn. You can have one, a child who's 2 or 3, and you're still trying to figure out who you are. But when I went through your reflection prompts in your book, List Your Goals Journal, I just felt that I can feel that a new parent needed this. So first, as always, I just want to get to know you a little bit more. What led to the creation of this book?
Oh, I love that. And you know what? You would be the first person to say that this goals journal is good for a new parent. That's a first.
I love that.
Yes. So it's a different kind of, shall we say, book deal, how this book came to me. And that the publisher, Rockridge Press, who at the time they were just bought over by Simon and Schuster, but at the time they were the 9th largest publisher globally. And how they worked was, instead of having the author give birth to their manuscript and shopping that with a publisher, the publisher, Rockridge Press, would go to market, research what are the books that people want to read right now. They would see what's trending, and then they source the author to write the book. So one day I got an email saying that we are looking for a life and career coach to write a goals journal, and we've done a deep dive, and would you be interested in writing this book? And I said, of course. Like, it just seemed so perfect because it was such a great opportunity. It was everything that I loved and knew, and of course I had to submit writing chapters and just to prove, I guess, that I was the right person. Right. And then we went from there. So that's how the book actually came to me. It was not something that I, in full transparency, said, I'm going to write List Your Goals Journal. They approached me and said, we have this. And then from there, it was such a joy to be able to sit down, take a deep dive, and break down this incredible journal into, 5 pillars of our lives, how to manifest our personal, professional, health, relationship goals over the next year. So that's how it came to be. Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why they came to you. And when I think of wellness and well-being, you are the person that comes to mind. I'm so lucky that you're here in the same city as I am. I don't even know why we didn't do this in person. Come to think about it.
We'll do a part 2 in person.
Yeah, I would love that. It's something that many of us struggle with, and you cover. So I just want to share with everybody. So just for those of you watching on YouTube, this is the book that we're talking about. So you have these pillars, as you said: personal growth, professional growth, healthy habits, relationships, and well-being. And that's why I think of the new parent, because so much is shifting in our lives. And when I speak to new parents, so last year I had the opportunity to speak to 100 parents, and every single time I spoke to a new parent, there was this idea of, who am I now? What everything is changing. There are so many things now that I see that I want to work on myself. In terms of my career, I'm questioning certain things. In terms of relationships, things are a little rocky. I should have done this more. I should have thought about this more. And my identity and my purpose, everything. And so you call that.
We call that. I say stop shoulding and stop masturbating on ourselves. I should be. I must be doing that. So we say stop shoulding and masturbating, and it's true.
It's so good. But we do, and we get stuck in this cycle. And so you give us this really beautiful framework that if a parent is listening, I encourage you, not you can do one a day, but I would say one a week so that you have time to sit with it. That's what I felt when I got this. I felt that I needed to actually, I would read the question and sit back a little bit and say, well, actually, I'm not sure what I want to answer. And I need to put thought into this. So when you were writing it, what did you envision? I know you said the new parent wasn't really that, but who describe the persona of the person that you feel can benefit from this?
Anyone who has a dream to manifest their goals.
Hmm.
That's like you said, a new mom who wants to be an incredible mom, a
Hmm.
new mom who already has a job maybe, and who after mat leave will go back to work and wants to balance parenting and career.
Hmm.
Someone who is working a job they don't like and want to moonlight their side hustle. It's for anyone who has goals and dreams in this world and wants a plan and a roadmap to manifest them. So it's the person. So it's not really an avatar of a person. It's more
Right.
a desire. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I can't believe you said that because right before you came on, I said I was thinking of like how to open this conversation and I didn't even go that way, but I said list your goals, but when I was answering them, I felt like it was more or also in addition, list your desires and intentions. Like there was a lot more to it. It's scribbled, but it's literally here.
I see it. I
It's
see it.
I
Well,
am not lying.
there's also affirmations, which are,
Right.
kind of similar to, desires,
Hmm.
and intentions. So yes, you're
Oh,
not
I
far
love
off.
it.
There are
That was the
20 of
feeling.
those in the book.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. So, okay, when you've been, let's just actually take a step back and talk about your work first, because as a coach, you must have seen so many people as well that were struggling in one of these domains or pillars. What have you seen, in terms of even personal growth, like that people struggle with?
Yes. So what I see a lot, I typically work with high performing professional women, including moms. So I usually see lawyers, accountants, doctors, real estate agents, mompreneurs, small business owners, and I will help them with their, mindset, health and wellness goals, time management, productivity during the day, transformational habits. I also just help with flat out social media and branding because that's just
Hmm.
something that I love doing. I've done it for a long time. I've helped companies do it as well. So that's a small portion of my practice. But mostly it's the person who maybe on the outside looks like they have it all, but inside feels like they're drowning and feels a lot like an imposter. A lot of my clients, struggle with imposter syndrome where they
Hmm.
feel like the ground's going to be, that they haven't really earned this. They're not really deserving or belonging there. And so we talk about limiting beliefs and we do anchoring exercises like thought challenging for mindset. But typically someone just to enjoy seeing me every 2 weeks as I keep them on track. So just to preface, I help and I coach burnout prevention. If you are struggling with burnout or in full blown burnout, I direct you to your family doctor.
Right.
So I am a life and career coach. I'm not a doctor, so I don't treat burnout. But people love to see me every 2 weeks because I keep their goals mapped out. We look at every quarter. I keep them on track. I hold them accountable. We create new systems in their days and I keep them waking up
Hmm.
in abundance, in joy, in passion, in play, because when life starts to feel like that groundhog day, when every day's the same, we start to feel stuck. And sometimes it's just there are small tweaks required. Sometimes we think we need this entire life overhaul, and more often than
Right.
not, we just need some tips and strategies to play with our lives and shuffle things around. And ooh, all of a sudden we feel like we're in that flow state again.
Mm. Well, you said that word, new systems. I think that we have to kind of dig a little deeper into that because when we become a new parent, we might be struggling because we're trying to maintain everything that we've been doing since before, and we're trying to come back to our schedule, come back to the routines that we had. But now there's a baby that's telling us what our new routine is, and it
Good
becomes
luck
really
going back
hard.
to that. Good luck, says the baby.
Yeah. Well, mine are 5, 7, and 9. I'm not there yet. There's still, but there's a discovery. And you're right. There has to be this shift in new systems. And so, in order for us to shift, we have to have this openness of what can the day look like. So what do you share with people that you work with, or in terms of somebody who's now realizing, okay, this isn't working. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. I think, or I might be approaching burnout at some point. How do you shift that perspective of like life has to change and here are the steps?
So again, so when I coach moms and women, I take them through a 4-step process. Transformation happens through 4 steps that I've learned through research and through my clients. Mindset is first. So for those new
Hmm.
moms, it's about understanding that our life is a period of seasons and peaks and valleys. And so right now, what is our season now? Right now is our season for breastfeeding,
Mm,
for momsomnia and not
mm.
sleeping. And so the most important thing is we shift in how we think that our life is going to be exactly the way it was. And here's the
Yeah.
news flash. It's not. And that's not a bad thing. So as we shift our mindset, we must give ourselves grace and compassion as a new
Mhm.
mom, because we have these expectations, and sometimes we have unrealistic expectations. We think we're just going to push out this beautiful bundle of joy, and oh well, maybe we think we won't sleep for the first couple of months, but then everything should level out. It doesn't. It doesn't.
Mhm.
You have a new person that you love and that you want to give your time to raise. And so it's about, when I say mindset, it's about giving, surrendering to perfection and whatever
Yeah.
whatever you envisioned your life to be, whatever you thought it would be like, well, bonne chance, it's not what you
Mhm.
thought, right?
Mm.
So much of it to start. That's why my step one of my 4 pillars is mindset. And then next is the body.
Hmm.
Next is understanding what stress does to our body, both acute and chronic, and how we pour into ourselves in the 4 pillars. What we're eating as moms, how we're sleeping, how we're moving our body, and how we're managing stress. And actually, the 5th pillar, how we're connecting socially. So, what we
That's so
eat, how we
important.
sleep, how we
Mm.
move, how we manage stress, how we connect socially, those pillars become pivotal as moms. Now, they don't all come together at the same time. Some weeks you will practice the social connection piece. You'll see the moms at a mommy and me group and you'll feel socially connected, but maybe you ate like crap. You didn't have time.
Mm.
So it's about managing that kind of 5-slice pizza pie.
Mm.
Next is the time. So first we begin to reclaim our
Mm.
lives by mindset, then body, then time. So once we've got the two in alignment, then we can start to look at our days and how are we as moms, new moms, working moms, any kind of mom, how are we maximizing our time? Are we trimming the fat? Can we embrace the mindset that if we're asked to be on the PTA
Hmm.
president and do someone's carpool next week and all these things we're
Right.
asked as moms, no doesn't mean no forever. No could mean no this semester. We can revisit it in the future. No's are neither firm nor final. So really getting intentional with our days. And then the 4th step is the catapult of all those 3. So mindset, body, time, and then we experience the 4th step, which is transformation. And that
Mm.
is when we start to live in alignment with our goals. We start to feel in this flow state. And then how does that, when can we expect to feel better as we start to pour into ourselves? Well, the research shows us it's about 21 days to form a new habit, but about 66 days up to 6 months for it to start to become more automatic. So are we
Right.
breathing? Are we eating well? Are we going to bed? Are we practicing social connection? How are we doing with our limiting beliefs? What are the thoughts? So as we start to practice, take things out of our toolbox, that is approximately how long we can expect to see change in about 66 days up to 6 months for our new habits to start to become more automatic. So as a new mom, to understand this, that things take time
Mm.
and to embrace the mindset that we will not be here forever, but to honor the stage you're in now,
Hmm.
to really
Oh,
honor.
that's so good.
And every stage for a mom is a stage. Like I just
Mhm.
posted this morning on Instagram that my son walked to his last high school exam. He's in 12th grade here and he is going to engineering school to college in fall, and I realized he just wrote his last exam. And my mom situation is I'm an empty nester in just
Mm.
2-3 months,
Soon.
and
Mm.
that's a really big, I'm going to try and hold it together here, but
Mhm.
that's my mom stage. But you know
Yeah.
what that is? I'm excited because now I get to do all the things that I've shelved because I've put my kids first. So every stage of motherhood, whether
Mm.
you're not sleeping, you'll sleep again. Everything comes full circle.
Yeah, and it's true. And then, I hear some parents with older kids that say, I would want to go back into those stages. Like I could have played with my kids more or whatever it is.
Mm.
But then the moms that are in this stage, we say, well, I just want to breathe and I can't, I've played with them, but now I need to do this and there's so much to do. And so I love that you look at it as a season. It's because it kind of reminds us like this is the season I'm in and that's okay. It means, if I have a 2 year old, well, it's the tantrum season. And though I need to support them in that, the
I need to
newborn
support
stage.
them,
Yeah.
and I need to support myself,
Oh,
mom
first,
self-care, and
please.
I need to support myself. Yeah.
Yes, that's why I'm really happy that you have an entire section or pillar on well-being because Curious Neuron at the beginning, Curious Neuron has been around for a few years now. It was focused first on the child, and I thought naively, as a mom of one, that all I had to do was support parents by teaching them how their child's emotions developed, and that would make things easier in life easier. Then I had my second, and then my third, and I was like, I'm not well. And so the science that I know and the research I know doesn't even matter because I stopped taking care of myself and I switched and pivoted Curious Neuron to parental well-being and teaching, parents how to regulate their emotions and how to take care of themselves. And so you're right. I want us to kind of focus on that for a second because a parent who's listening, especially new parents, I feel that we become hyper focused on like, I need to be the best parent. I'm going to read all the parenting books when in the end, what you need are books like these, like yours, where you're going to nurture yourself. Take the time to think about certain things. Maybe there will be some shifts, but reminding yourself that you not only still matter, you matter more now, right, as a parent. And so the well-being part is really important. Connection, you mentioned connection. Connection is something difficult for us sometimes as new parents because many parents that I spoke with feel that they're lonely. They're not connected to friends. Maybe they have a maternity leave or a paternity leave that's not at the same time as a friend, and so they're alone at home and they're not speaking to the people in the same way. Right, during the day, people are working. What would you say to a parent who feels that this is kind of feeling heavy on them in terms of that not having the connection and feeling really lonely in this stage of their life?
I would say that social connection is not a nicety, it's a
Mm,
necessity.
right. Yeah.
100%. And so I
Mm,
simply say, I call it natural consequences. Keep going in that isolated stage and watch how you feel. You're not going to end up feeling so good. So it's about those habits, forcing yourself to get social.
yeah.
And what's beautiful are these these music,
Hmm.
their sessions usually 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And
Right.
what it does is it
Hmm.
forces you to get out of the house. We all know
Yeah.
just kind of your home, one feeding goes to the next,
You,
one
yeah.
diaper change,
Yeah.
and it becomes this. Yeah. And so the importance of finding mom friends. I mean, I only had two boys, but both of my boys right away when we gave birth, I had mommy groups for both of them. So we were
Mm,
about 5 or 6 moms. We'd get together every week. Someone would host differently we'd rotate a different house every week. It was my lifeline. It was my saving
mm.
grace. It was both. It ended up becoming friends for my boys where they grew
Oh,
up. I
wow.
mean, we
Yeah.
went, and then we would have our evenings. So we would meet every week. And then when the kids got bigger, we would have our mom dinners once a month, and our kids
Mm,
became friends and we bonded, and it was my lifeline.
mm.
If I just had stayed home and not seen these women, they were pivotal. It's so important, and
I
we
get it.
don't realize it until we start to feel funky. And even today,
Right. Hmm.
if I look at my 5 pillars, it's always the one that goes. I mean, I meditate twice a day. I'm a meditation teacher. I eat well. I move my body. I do all of the things. For me, the pillar that I struggle with the most is social connection, because
Hmm.
I speak in person, but I sometimes speak virtually. I life coach over Zoom. I do teach yoga in person, but a lot of my work is done over a screen, just like this.
Right.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll wake up and I'll feel funky. And I'm like, I
Mm,
don't feel myself. And I'll be speaking to my mom, who's an incredible therapist. And she'll be like, Erica, I don't think you've had like a girls' night, or seen your girlfriends, or had a walk or a coffee with your friends. I'm like, Mommy, you're right.
mm,
And then I make the plan and boom, I feel better.
mm,
We are wired for social connectivity. And I know
mm,
that when I'm feeling funky, it's because I haven't left my office or my house and seen other people whose company I enjoy. So as moms, even if you think you can do it alone or it feels good, I
hmm.
challenge you to find the groups, to
Yeah.
find the moms, to do the mom swap, for you to take someone else's kid and let them have a date night. And then you take their kids and they have a date night. Find your mom partners
Mm,
and find your community, because they will be your lifeline, and they're a mental health booster, literally.
yeah. It
Yeah.
really is, and it makes such a difference in how we feel. And you're right. But even myself, I'm more of an introvert. However, I still feel in bigger groups, I might like step back a bit. But when I'm one on one, I love deep connections. A coffee and a conversation. There's just something about that. I think that that's important for us to kind of remind ourselves about it, and how important it is, especially at the beginning, like you said. For new moms, we need to find groups. I know that there's some moms that I've spoken with that are in isolated, areas, but looking for online groups now with Zoom and everything that exists, there are groups that exist, but we
And
have
there
to
are
just
meetups.
actively,
There,
yeah.
there's there used to be, I don't know if it still exists, but there was a website called Meetup, and there was a great way to find
Hmm,
mom groups, even in your own, even in small towns.
right.
There's lots of meetups and IRL, in real life meetups of moms who meet at a local coffee shop.
Hmm,
It doesn't have to be this big grandiose thing in a gym. It could just be in a coffee, in a coffee shop. So there's
hmm,
definitely websites out there, which is like, imagine kind of like speed dating, or hooking up with with a partner, but like hooking up with friends, meeting
yeah.
friends. If you've moved to a new town and you don't have, or a new city and you don't have your community built in yet, there's definitely places online to find those women,
Hmm.
find those moms.
Yeah. One thing that I'm thinking about this new parent is, boundaries and having and finding our voice. So you have a question in your book. It says, list the ways that you impose clear boundaries with those around you. And again, simple questions that make us really think, that make us step back. And I remember boundaries for me were something that I learned later on in my life. I'm in my 40s now, but in my late 30s, at that point I had two kids, or almost three around that time, but I realized that I wasn't setting clear boundaries with people, and that was something I really struggled with. How important is it, and how often do you speak with somebody who is in the same boat that I was, where you're in your 30s and you're like, I don't think I ever set clear boundaries with people?
Yeah. So without getting into like a psychobabble conversation, generally what I have found through experience is, generally people who struggle with low self-esteem
Mm,
are generally not as strong
right.
imposing clear boundaries,
Hmm.
both with others, mostly with others, with themselves as well. When we speak boundaries with others, right? With our
Right.
partner, our boss, our friends, but boundaries with ourselves also, making
Mm,
sure we're, shutting off our phone by 8 or 9 p.m., giving
hmm.
ourselves, me time. So that's what I have found. So if you struggle with boundaries, everyone can learn,
Hmm.
right?
It's true though, right? Mm,
We can all learn by practicing. And so for many of us, it's very much going out of our comfort zone, for asking what we need, for saying what we need, for saying no.
hmm.
And so I say a couple of tricks or tips I'll say is, let's say someone says, Cindy, you're so great. Please, we need you. Can you be on our mom committee? Like, we love your ideas. And it's generally from a great place. Like, they like you, they want you to participate. So some of us, because like I said, low self-esteem, we are
Hmm.
flattered to be asked. And so we're like, we have to do that. And so we say
Yep.
yes to that. So then we say yes to that, right?
Hmm.
So we say yes because they came from a good intention, and we're saying yes from a good intention. And those things start to happen. Can you do me a favor? Can you do this? Could you stay late? Your boss, like, can you stay late tonight? Your
Sure.
work's great. Like, can you work on this project? So we keep being the yes person,
Yeah.
right? Until we wake up one day and we're like fried.
Hmm.
We're exhausted. We've said yes to so many things. We're so disconnected from what we really need, from what our needs are. And so we've let these boundaries completely erode. So in order to take back our power, we need to think of a few things. Number one, when somebody said no to you, did like you've accepted no's many times, right?
Hmm.
You took the no. So what makes you think that someone else can't take the no? If someone said, like you said, can
Hmm.
you come? And they said, I'm really sorry. You're like, okay, maybe next time. Like, you've accepted no's before.
True.
So you can say no. The other thing is, when someone asks me
Mm,
to do something and I'm about to say yes, but then I know I'll regret it later, I just say, can I think about it and get back to you? And this way, if I come back to them and it's a no, it just sounds like a more respectful, well thought out no, as opposed to like, oh no, I can't.
right.
Another great saying that I've heard, it's not my own, is like, I'm as busy right now as I'd like to be. So,
Mm, I love
I
that.
really appreciate it, but right now I'm as busy as I'd like to be. So
Mm,
I'm going to have to say no right now. There's lots of ways, but boundaries is a lot about protecting your well-being.
hmm.
And let me tell you, it's very scary and out of our comfort zone when we first learn how to say it. But I encourage you, the way to get there with boundaries is to start really small. So literally, like the small things, smiling at a stranger on a street, taking yourself for a lunch or breakfast by yourself, practicing going
Right.
out of your comfort zone
Yeah.
in really small settings to practice. It's like a muscle, like boundaries and resilience. These are like muscles. And when we exercise them more frequently, they get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you start to say your first no, you're going to feel really strange. It's going to feel like, oh my God, what did I just do? And that person, I promise you, is going to survive
Mm-hmm.
with the no. When your boss says, can you stay late tonight? And you say, I'd love to, but I have my in-laws coming over for dinner and I already prepped this morning before work. I have to get home.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna understand, and you're gonna be
Right.
like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. And you walk out with your eyes closed and you're like, am I gonna have
Mm-hmm.
a job tomorrow?
Right. Exactly. But it's the inner
Right,
dialogue that's going to be
the inner
hard. Yeah.
dialogue. But practice it and you're gonna feel proud of yourself after you've
Yes.
said it. And before you know it, I teach this, I'm so damn good at it. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I've become really, really strong with boundaries
Yeah.
only because I know what happens when I betray myself. I
Mm-hmm.
start to not feel well. I start to feel burnt out. I start to feel tired. I start to say, like, why did I say yes? Why am I doing this? I want to be at the park playing with my kids, or I don't want to be here tonight. I want to be with my husband on a date night, or I want to be watching another episode of Handmaid's Tale. And then you're not happy where you are. And
Right.
so it's like a short term gain for a long term pain. In the short term, it feels
Mm-hmm.
great. You get that hit of dopamine. I said, yes, I'm a people pleaser. I made them happy. But in the long run, you're really the one who suffers from
Mm-hmm.
overburdening yourself and taxing or over cluttering your schedule.
Right. And the no's include your child. Can we just
Oh yeah.
emphasize that for one
Yes.
second? Because that can be so hard, right? You come home, you had a really hard day, and your child says, I don't know, maybe they want to go to the park or they want you to cook a specific meal for them. It's so hard to say no to our kids because you're like, oh, you're a good kid, but for your well being. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Except I have an exception for you, and that's such a
Mm-hmm.
great question. So I will say no. Like I have no problem saying no if they're like, "Oh, can I get another shiny car or whatever?" That for me, no problem. And yes, it's hard because if their friends have a lot of cars, like the play cars, and you don't want to get them another Hot Wheels. Here's a rule. Here was a rule that my husband and I really did try and implement, and so no's for sure. Saying no to our kids. No, you can't stay up another half an hour. You have to go to bed. Why? Because you're going to be tired and you're not going to be able
Mm-hmm.
to get up for school. But here is where I don't say no. Anytime my kid ever asked me to play, no matter how tired I was, and my
Mm,
husband and I pretty much were on the same page with this, we would not say no. So
yeah.
if we came home, or my husband came home and he was exhausted from the office, or I worked from home all day and I was tired, and they're like, can we go to the park and play in the sandbox?
Mm,
And I probably, if there was a time I didn't want to go, I just wanted to sit, play on the floor with them, relax. I was tired too. I really tried to not say no.
I
If
get
they
that.
asked me to play,
Mm,
I really tried to pull myself out of my body and say, they're not going to ask me to play for a long time. And now
mm-hmm.
I know it because I'm just
You see.
begging them to play with me or do
Do you want to
anything
go to
with
the
me.
park?
I even said to my son, he finished that exam. He wrote that math exam from 9 to 12. I'm like, you're finished. Let's go for lunch at 12. It's like I'm going with my girlfriend.
Oh no.
so
Oh, so
so I
hard.
just it was my rule, which
Yeah.
was I had no problem saying no to them for things like, again, bedtime, or you want to go away. It's not a good, anything
Hmm.
like that was no. But anytime they asked to play, I tried to say yes.
I
I
get
really
that.
did. Yeah, I
Thank you
tried.
for reminding us about that. I think I do always encourage parents to like think about your well-being first, right? If you are tapped out to the
Yeah.
point that bedtime will be hard, maybe not the park and maybe something else for that day.
Well,
But I
that's it.
agree with you. Yeah.
That's it. So if going to the park is tiring to walk, a
But play.
compromise. Can we
Yeah,
can we play fish or war? So you're
exactly.
physically sitting on the floor but engaging with them, but you're
Exactly.
not. There's a compromise. But again, the
But
request
the
to
play.
play.
Mm,
Maybe it wasn't like, can we go for ice cream now? Maybe if I didn't feel like going for ice cream, can we play cards instead?
right.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
But just
But
that
I agree
act
with
of, if
you.
they
Mm,
wanted to be with me, to play with me, no matter how tired I was, or maybe I didn't even want to do it.
mm,
There were times, of course, we just want to get into our own bed, read a magazine or whatever.
mm.
I really did try and engage them if they asked.
Let's take a moment to pause just for a second so that we can reflect on this. Erica mentioned in this first half that mindset shift was the first pillar of her program. And she said something that was so important. She said, surrender to perfection. Just let it go. Just let it go. And the way that I talk about it is, kind of being aware of our unrealistic expectations. And I think that as parents, we tend to do this. We paint this ideal picture of what it looks like to be a parent, having everything perfectly done, looking great, looking a certain way, being rested, whatever it is. We paint this picture in our minds. And so we set these expectations, even of our kids sleeping. I've heard so many parents outside of the club, that I've spoken to through our social media account, but also parents and moms in particular inside the Reflective Parent Club, that talk about feeling like they failed. Let's say they're at somebody else's house and their child doesn't take a long nap, and an in-law or a parent says, that's it, that's all they slept. And then you're like, what did I mess up? What did I do? Or I just spent half an hour trying to get my child to fall asleep and now they only slept for half an hour. And so I really want us as parents to think about what she just described in this first half, including the mindset shift plus adding compassion to that. Because when we do that, it really allows us to be kinder to ourselves as new parents. And so, what if you were to write right now this reflection down, or maybe you're taking a walk right now or doing something in your home? Where is there room for me to add more self compassion? Where's there room in my life right now? Is it about my house or my home, my apartment, how I maintain my home? Is it about how I'm parenting my child who's under the age of 2 right now? They're young. Can I be more compassionate with myself? Is it about how I balance everything? Or maybe I think I'm not balancing everything. And so I'm not being very compassionate with myself. Where right now in your life is there room for more self compassion? I'll let you sit with that a little bit and we're going to get back to our conversation with Erica. I do want to say that the Reflective Parenting Club, although you might think that you need it later in your life, it really helps new parents to kind of build these um, or work on these mindset shifts. And so if you see yourself stuck in a pattern where you're being really harsh on yourself or hard on yourself, or you feel lonely, or you're being really negative in your mind, you're not seeing the impact on your child's behavior yet. It's going to happen. And so start working on these mindset shifts with us inside the Reflective Parent Club. I'll have the code for you at the end of this podcast episode. I'll see you on the other side. I have to bring this up because you mentioned it a couple times, and I know that new parents have said this so many times. Time management. Why aren't we taught this when we're in school? Because so many parents now that are adults are really struggling with this. Now that they are parents, there's a lot more to manage. It's almost like we're running a small business now. And it's like,
Yep.
okay, how do I do this? What advice do you give to parents who feel overwhelmed by just everything that they have to manage now?
Yeah. There's a bunch of things. For time management, I'd say, first of all, by nature, we experience a lot of the P word, procrastination. So
Mm-hmm.
here's what we do. So something looks too overwhelming, we put it off. And then when we procrastinate, it builds this sort of anxiety. But procrastination is not a disease. It's a habit that we can change with the right strategy. So
Yeah.
just a few quick tips for time management for moms. First of all, a lot of us, just our minds are so busy with everything we have to do personally, kids, the dentist, the birthday party,
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, our taxes, whatever. I would suggest first get out a piece of paper, brain dump everything you have to do on a piece of paper. That's the first.
Yeah.
Get everything out, the Excel spreadsheet, the taxes, the haircut, the waxing appointment, the
Mm-hmm.
birthday party, get it all out. Next, put everything in order of priority. So give everything a number from most important to least important. And then the third step, why we don't get our stuff done, is because we just leave it on a to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
The third step is to take the most pressing and most important things we have to do right now, which is like sign up for day camp or for hockey or whatever, or get the Excel file, and then give them a spot where they live in our calendar. So it doesn't go on a to-do list. We time block the most important tasks. That will start getting us unstuck.
Yeah.
That's one time management strategy. Another time management strategy is the most underrated, and that is, of course, delegating or asking for help.
Hmm.
And so, just two questions that I always ask, that I say, like, to ask yourself before you do the thing. Number one, of course, is someone else able to handle this, to take this off my plate? And here's the clincher: will they be 80% as good as I will? Will they do it 80% as well as I did? So maybe the hubby doesn't do
Yeah.
something as good as I do, or whatever, or the wife. If it's 80% as good as me, I'm giving it off. I'm delegating. But here's what's so great for parents now is delegating doesn't only mean to a person, it can also mean delegating it to an automation.
Hmm.
And so much of us are doing the same repetitive tasks over and over again. Can you set up automatic bill payments so you don't have to
Hmm.
think about it? Meal prepping, meal planning, I mean, emails, scheduling stuff. What can you automate in your life that will help you shave time and gain back some time? So you have obviously more time for the things that you want to do. And then the other things, I would just say, really, it's about, time management is about, again, understanding that not everything has to happen, right now. We can put things
Yes.
off and it feels really good. We can defer. So really looking, I don't want to get it too nitty gritty, but like the Eisenhower matrix, which is like do, delete, defer,
Hmm.
what can you trim? Taking a good look at your calendar and saying, like, what can I defer to later? What can I completely let go of? Like if I wanted to learn Italian
That's an
this
important one.
summer,
Mm.
can I put it off till next year? Can I delete it entirely? So just being really intentional with everything that you do, really taking stock of how you spend your days and seeing where you can really trim the fat off of what you do to
Right.
leave more time and space. We don't leave enough white space in our
Mm.
calendars, which is just time to breathe and decompress before we go from thing and task to task. And that leaves us really, that whole multitasking piece leaves us really depleted. Our brain actually
Right.
40%, our output is 40% better when we unitask, but we've
Hmm.
become these multitasking machines with very little downtime because we're trying to get it all in, and it's really taxing on our nervous system. So I'd
Yeah.
really encourage you to take an honest look at your days, track your time for a week, see what you're doing, how much time are you spending on social media, like take an honest deep dive of your time and see where you can trim the fat.
There's the concept of time confetti. I forget the author, but there's a book and
Yes,
she's a researcher as well.
yes.
And that too, we don't realize that we're sprinkling all these things that we do, right? Like
Yeah,
even just scrolling, right? We could have a task and we say, okay, I'm going to do this the next hour, but then we get distracted by
yeah,
beeps and sounds coming from our phone. And
yeah.
so it's really important for us to kind of use that time efficiently. And often we don't. We have to be honest with ourselves. We often don't. But the time blocking thing you mentioned is so important. Getting it off that sheet of paper and saying, you know what, this, I need to redo the closet or whatever it is. Like it's going in on Saturday morning from 9 to 10. That's
I
it.
would I would encourage everyone, like it's really simple. My clients love it. Like, we call it like the brain dump activity. Take
That, yeah.
everything that's keeping you up at night, just throw it on a piece of paper, prioritize it, time block it. That will begin the unstuck process. And the studies really show is the hardest part is just getting started.
Mm,
So a
mm,
quote to keep in mind is, you don't have to get it right, you just have to get it going. So
mm,
we think, oh my God, this is going to take 5 hours, so I'm going to keep putting it off and putting it off.
yeah.
But just coming to the table with low judgment, like little judgment and low expectations, like I'm just gonna get started. That's the hardest part. Once we're in it, things generally go quicker
Hmm.
than we anticipated. So just getting started, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be started, is a great mindset.
I absolutely love that. I think it's great advice, and I hope everybody will follow this and give it a try and let me know. I want to be mindful of your time. I have maybe one question. I'm still curious about a few things, but I'm thinking about the parent who's listening to this, not necessarily a new parent or a parent that's gone back to work. The biggest problem that comes up is how do I balance everything? And I just feel overwhelmed. I always feel like something's got to give. It could be
Mhm.
my child for some weeks, it could be work for the other weeks, my house, I
Yeah.
can't do it all.
Yeah.
Maybe I know that some parents that listen to Curious Neuron also have very jobs that require a lot of their time. They
Yeah.
travel for their job. How do you balance everything and not feel like you're failing at everything at the same time?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you need a really good support system. And that
Hmm.
could look like a sister, a mom, a friend, a nanny, paid help. Women should never be shamed if they
Right.
need help. They need a housekeeper. They need someone. Listen, today on, we're both from from the same city. I saw something on Facebook that said, if you're looking for someone, I have someone who comes to the house on Monday. She meal preps, meal batches for you, puts it in your freezer. You set the menu. She shops for you. It's all healthy food. And like I said, can I please have the number?
Yeah.
No shame. And she's like, would
Yeah.
anyone like this contact? I'm like, please. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see how much it is, but
Mm-hmm.
there is no shame. We need help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Every mom or working mom needs support. So it's a matter of playing with what works for you. And you should never be shamed into not getting support. But it's really about the mindset. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this is really important. And I don't think it's about setting a low bar or low expectation. Your life is going to look different after kids. If you were perfect in your mind at work,
Mm-hmm.
good luck. You're not going to be perfect at work and at home all the time, at the same time, simultaneously. And so I always say success and balance. You have to zoom out. You can't zoom into success with a microscope. So some days, if you were to zoom in, some days my parenting would get a 10 because I said no to a work contract, but I was at the French play and like I was front and center, and mommy had got a 10 and my career got a 0 because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't show up. And the other days I'll get off a stage. I will have just spoken to 500 people and I'm like, oh, that feels really good. My work got a 10, but maybe because I had had that booked before, I missed the baseball game. And
Right.
my husband or someone's texting me the score, and it happened. I was just in Florida recently speaking, and my son scored a hat trick at the finale, and I missed him score 3 goals, and I felt like crap.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think success and balance we look at over time. If you're expecting to be perfect in all roles, good luck. You're going to set yourself up for failure. So
Yeah.
understanding that some things are going to slide. If we all get out and get to school, some days someone won't brush their teeth, or you'll go to bed with the dishes in the sink one night. And
Yeah.
it's about just sometimes we have to let things go. We have to just release, lower the bar, ditch perfectionism. Sometimes good enough is better than perfect, right? And so that's the mindset. But I really do believe, as someone who teaches it, we really need those tools and strategies to keep ourselves in balance. The most, and I would give 3 if you would ask me. I would give you, if like someone's working now and they're a mom, what are 3 things they can do right now which will help their mental health, especially since it's Mental Health Awareness Month?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I would say any kind of breathing, having a regular breathing practice, breathwork practice. That could be as simple as a Dr. Andrew Weil 4-7-8 breath, where you're inhaling through your nose, you're holding at the top to the count of 7 and exhaling through pursed lips to the count of 8, or a simple box breath, inhale to 4, hold to 4, exhale, or just 6 to 8 big, deep belly breaths. I have my clients schedule this in 10:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the afternoon. Breathing rewires our brain for calm. Next, I would encourage you, try going to bed 15 minutes earlier each night. Sleep is a problem for many of us.
Mm-hmm.
Try programming 15 minutes at night and then waking up 15 minutes earlier in the morning and using those 15 minutes for anything that is self-care and joy and pleasure for you. So starting the morning on your own, reading, journaling, stretching, praying, knitting, podcasting, anything that feels pleasurable to you. So what that does is that gets us in bed sooner before midnight, and it gets us up starting our day off pleasure. And the last thing will be just any kind of walking, 10 to 15 minutes a day. It is
Right.
my non-negotiable. We live in Quebec. It's very cold in the winter. I walk every single day. It's important to my
Wow.
mental health. We know from the studies just a 10 to 15-minute walk is so good for our dopamine, for our bodies. So breathing, a bit of a sleep and morning routine, and walking are 3 incredible places to start if you're not feeling your best right now and you're a mom.
I absolutely love that. And you know what I love the most is that you didn't tell us like take a 3-hour chunk out of your day and then do this.
No,
No,
because
they're
it's
all
not
moments.
realistic.
It's not. I know. And I think that sometimes some parents feel like if I want to make a difference in my life and well-being, I need more time. And it's not about that. It's moments. We like to say at Curious Neuron, how can I create moments of this, right? Moments of connection with myself or my child, moments of self-care, which is what you said, right? Those first 15 minutes of my day. How does that become a moment for myself? And just the moment, just the awareness that I'm taking this time for myself, like you said, to listen to the podcast, to meditate, to pray, to do whatever it does to feel good for me, it starts your day off very differently. And so I appreciate that you said that they're moments. They really, truly are moments.
And do you know how our moments are defined? What I didn't speak about when you asked me about time, what I forgot to share is it's also about our non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can define them, our values guide our non-negotiables. If we can live in alignment with our goals and with our alignment with our values, we can live in
Yeah.
flow. So, I'll have a mom, let's say, and she's working 5 days a week. She's feeling burnt out. And we say, okay, let's talk about this. What would a 4-day work week look like to you? And I see their eyes. Oh, I could cover my grays. I could go to I said, okay, all right. So the other thing to do is obviously we got to look at finances. Can we afford a 4-day work week? Let's look at what that could look like. So we start to explore. So when you start to see what you value, what your non-negotiables are, you start to rewire your days and live your life in alignment with your values. So I have had moms who have ditched that fifth day and downsized. They stopped. They made other choices that let them. So when we can define our values and their non-negotiables were a 4-day work week, not a 5-day work week, because they felt better. And so what are your non-negotiables? A girls' night, a date night, saving X amount of dollars a week, having family meals 3 times a week. What are
Right.
your values and non-negotiables? Because when we make time for our non-negotiables, that's when life gets good too. That's when we start to feel in alignment and in balance. When we can define, set, and protect our non-negotiables, that's really important.
Oh, it's so good. It's so true. Across everything that you mentioned, you've said mindset a couple times and we've
Yeah.
spoken about self-compassion. I know that many parents and moms especially struggle with this. The mindset piece, somebody who's listening to this who struggles a little bit with that self-compassion. So in a moment where you say we have to shift that mindset, I know that it takes time. What advice do you have to somebody who says, okay, I've listened to this. I went out for my walk while listening to this podcast episode, or I journaled about it. I try to encourage parents listening to this to have a notebook that they take notes and we build reflections around our lives and what we can change and what we can do, with what we've learned on the podcast. So if they're listening to this and saying, I get that I have to shift my mindset, but how do I begin that?
Yeah.
If I become really critical on myself when I want to switch that to, for example, sure, I just need to leave the dishes in the sink tonight because I want to take time for myself and just breathe a bit or be with my child. But then the internal dialogue starts, and you're like, you should clean those dishes. How can
Yeah.
you leave your house like this, right? How do you shift that?
Right. So a few things. First of all, you talked about the word compassion.
Mm,
I speak about this all the time. The two things we all must grant ourselves as we start to course correct, as we try new tools in our life, is grace and compassion.
mm,
As we go about our wellness journey, we will have setbacks.
mhm,
It's life, it's transformation. So when we err, when we fall off our wellness wagon, when we scream at our kid and we had hoped not to,
mm,
when we eat like crap, when we said we were going to eat well, when we stayed up till 3 a.m, when we said we were going to go to bed, go to bed at 10
mhm,
o'clock, the most important things we grant ourselves is grace and compassion. It's those two things that we give ourselves. It's the mindset that we tell ourselves a bad day is not a bad week, is not a bad month, it's not a bad quarter, is not a bad year, is not a bad life. And what happens, the sun rises every morning. And so every morning is a chance to start again. So
mhm,
it's important that we embrace that mentality that if we messed up, tomorrow is a chance to try again. And we must be as ooey and gooey and soft with ourselves at all times
mm,
as possible. And if we are, that's when we can practice self-forgiveness. That's when we can be resilient. That's when we can rise again. If we stay stuck, we will not be able to rise again. We'll be stuck in the past. Our brains will be where we'll be focusing. And that's where I talked a little bit about the beginning in our limiting beliefs. So a quick little nerdy science thing. We have about 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and about 90 to 95% of them are the same thoughts we had yesterday, and 80% of them are negative. So
mm,
we have those ants, those automatic negative thoughts. I'm not good enough. I won't have enough time. And so how we get out of our head is we thought challenge. We do the exercise
right.
of thought challenging. Number one, I'll never be able to do it on time. I'll never do this on time. Well, what's the challenging thought to that? If I delegate some of it, I can get the project done on time.
Mm,
So challenging, and a lot of these ants and automatic negative thoughts we take as fact when in fact they're not even fact. So it's
exactly.
about challenging our limiting beliefs and negative thoughts with something more positive. It's balancing a negative thought with a positive. And I often have my clients take out a journal or keep it on their phone anytime they default to those same negative thoughts.
Mm,
What is something, a fact that you can prove to yourself that that thought is not correct? That's how you talk to yourself. And the more you talk to yourself, the more you're soft and gooey, the more that you give yourself grace and compassion, the more you practice. Truly, the better you get at this, the really
Mm-hmm.
you rewire your brain. You really
Mm,
do. And
literally.
that's when they say, that's why I have everyone working from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. A scarcity
Mm,
mindset is everything's fixed, there's not enough. And abundance is there's always enough love, always enough time, always enough success. Her success is not my failure. Abundance lives for me, it waits for me. And so, as we practice thought challenging, surrendering,
mm,
grace, and compassion, we work towards that abundance mindset, which is where a joyful life lives.
mm. I can't think of a better way to end this conversation. Erica, thank you. That was beautifully said. How does the audience follow you or find you online?
Yes, everything's at ericadiamond.com. I'm on Instagram a lot. I don't show up for work. I show up for joy. I love connecting with people. I warn you, it's a little bit of a random hodgepodge sort of things. If you're coming only for self-care tips, you'll get like my joys, my frustrations, anything I see in the world that seems strange, I will
Mm,
say. So you'll get real life, unfiltered, raw. Erica Diamond, everything's there. So my course, Busy to Bliss, you can also visit at busytobliss.com. It's a self-care course for women. All my one-on-one life coaching is there. All my speaking, if you're a company listening and you're looking for workplace wellness,
mhm.
everything is at ericadiamond.com. And then say hi on social at Erica Diamond with a C.
That is fantastic. I will put all of those links in the show notes. I'm so grateful that we finally got to chat. And I know this will be only the first of many. Thank you, Erica, for being here today. And thank you to everyone listening. I will see you next Monday. Erica, I hope we see each other again soon. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Erica Diamond. I'm taking a pause right now because I want to get curious. So, again, I'm testing a new model of this podcast today. So, please let me know if you like it. You can email me at info@curiousneuron.com. You can always email me, by the way, to say hi. But what I want to do right now is we paused in the middle for reflection. And now let's pause to get curious to see if there's science around that we can talk about science around this conversation that Erica and I had. Actually, this one in particular, so there's a lot of science around mindset shift and self-compassion, but I didn't want to share that. I was actually really curious about something that she said about the thoughts that we have per day. I had also heard the number that she mentioned, and I was like, let me just see if there's a study that I could find. And in fact, there was a study that came out of Queen's University that found that that is a myth. It's not that many thoughts. It's actually around 6,200 thoughts that we have per day. And the way that they studied this was by putting people in an MRI machine, an fMRI machine, and testing or assessing while they were watching a movie the beginning and the end of a thought. And so they call these the thought worms because it's like the continuous beginning and end of thoughts that we're having. And so they did that and estimated 6,200 thoughts per day. And it is true that a lot of our thoughts happen to be negative, but I don't have a number for that. We have an episode with Ethan Kross, who's a researcher and has a book called Chatter, and you can read all about Chatter in his book. And I could even post that episode in the show notes. I will also post an episode for parents, for new parents in particular, in the show notes so that you can continue your listening in case you are a new listener here on the podcast. But I do want us to take that science around our thoughts. It's still a lot of thoughts. It doesn't mean that we don't have a lot. I just wanted to make sure that I had a study, and I'll post that study in the show notes too. But it just reminds us, and it's something that we do inside the Reflective Parent Club. And by the way, if you would like to have 15% off your membership with the Reflective Parent Club, I struggled to call it membership. You know that I've gone between program and membership. You've seen the evolution and the changes. It's because it renews every 3 months. However, the program that I created, you can do in 3 months. And so in 3 months, you can see a difference in how you show up for your child. You can see a difference in how you cope with emotions in these emotional situations, whether you're angry with your partner or really you need to set a boundary with your boss or your colleagues or your friends or family members, or you're getting really annoyed or stressed or overwhelmed with your child. All of these are moments where we cope with emotions, and if we could better manage our emotions and cope with them in these moments, stress levels come down, and when stress levels come down, our child's behavior changes. And so I want to give you, especially the new parents, that you are not in this situation yet. Come and build those skills before you need them rather than being stuck in them and being so overwhelmed. Use the code podcast15 at the checkout. You'll see a place for coupon code. If you can't find it, email me, info@kirstnon.com. We'll do it together on Zoom. But you can use that code and get 15% off. So it's already $1 a day, and you're going to get 15% off of that. And so for less than $1 a day, less than one therapy session, you are getting continuous support where you meet with me for 1 hour every week with a group of parents. You feel less alone, more connected, less isolated, and more empowered by the conversations that we have every single Tuesday. So you can do that. All right. So there's the code that I had promised you. I'm going to put in the show notes as well. But here's what I'd like you to do this week. So given that study that we saw, knowing how many, thoughts that we do have, start noticing what is the sort of pattern that you're noticing in your thoughts. Are they supportive? Are they negative? Are they empowering? Are they, pushing you down? Are they being hard on yourself? What is the pattern that you are noticing in your thoughts? You're most probably going to notice them in retrospect first, and that's okay. Keep yourself a notebook. You can use your app on your phone to write down a thought that you had in a moment. So your boss says, this assignment is crap, and you go back into your office, write down your thoughts. Maybe your thoughts are, why do I always fail everything? Or why can't I just be good at this job? Or I hate this job, or I hate my life and this is so miserable and I just don't want to be in this job anymore. Notice it. Notice your thoughts. We don't want to let those 6,200 thoughts per day kind of get unnoticed, because when you start noticing your thoughts, you can start validating them and you can start acknowledging them and you can start having a conversation with them. And so if your thoughts are telling you, you should be doing more in your home, well, caught that word should. And so if you practice catching yourself in these moments, it just gets so much easier to support yourself in these moments. And so, my dear parents, this episode was for you, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoyed this new format. Let me know if you like that I show up a little bit more on my own. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing to the Reflective Parenting Podcast, whether you are on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Audible. Thank you for being here. And I will see you next Monday. Don't forget that if you know another new parent, share this episode with them. Help us grow the Reflective Parenting Podcast and help us spread the word about Curious Neuron and the word that the mission and the work that we're doing, which is truly supporting the parents. And through the work that we are doing, we hope that we can create this more holistic approach to a child's healthcare where the parent is part of the picture. Thank you for being here. Have a beautiful and wonderful week. See you next Monday. Bye.